Hey guys, it's Kaylee. I am one of two people handling this cooking channel, and lately Joe and I have really been into freezer cooking. So I'm cooking tikka masala today. We are going to triple this recipe. I'm taking inspiration from a recipe that I've got printed out, and I will link that down below. We did change up a few things, and like I said, we tripled the recipe because we're actually going to have one portion of it for dinner tonight, and then the other two we are going to let cool, put into some bags, label them, and then have them to reheat. I really love freezer meals lately. I've really gotten into the YouTube videos of these channels that are doing this. It's such a great way to have meals stored up in case you think you might be not feeling like cooking one day and you want to go eat out. This is a great alternative to that, to be able to just throw something on the stove, have it ready, have it be delicious and wholesome. So that's what we're aiming for. We just got a chest freezer and we're looking to fill it up. So looking forward to sharing some of these recipes with you on this channel. But let's get started with this tikka masala. Because we are cooking 3 batches, I'm going to use my Dutch oven. You can use a larger pan, whatever's going to fit. And then I'm just getting some oil heated up. I'm choosing to use avocado oil just because it has a high temp point, so it's not going to burn very easily, which sometimes happens with me with the Dutch oven. So I'm using some avocado oil, and then we are going to start cutting up some of our chicken thighs. You can also choose to use chicken breast in this recipe, but traditionally in this recipe, chicken thighs are what is being used. So I am just going to dice up some of these chicken breasts, not some, all, since we're tripling the recipe. I'm using a whole giant pack from Walmart. This did take a while to chop everything up, but totally worth it to make it ahead of time. So we're going to add all of that diced chicken to the pan and get that starting to be cooked. We've got some other ingredients that we're currently prepping. You can see Joe, the sous chef, in the background. He's thinly slicing some onions, and then I'm going to start grating some fresh ginger. There is like some paste you can use to put in here that we usually use to make it easier, but we had some leftover ginger in the fridge. Every time I buy ginger, I'm not sure what to do with the rest of it, so this was a great recipe to kind of throw the rest of that in there. So I'm just going to grate some fresh ginger up and stick that in there as well. So now that the rest of our ingredients are prepped and that chicken has started cooking, we're going to go ahead and add those sliced onions and also all of that freshly grated ginger. We're kind of lazy with the garlic, so we are just going to use our already minced up jar of garlic and add some of that. Next, we're going to move on to our spices. I'm going to add some salt and some garam masala, which is pretty much the overall flavor of the dish, and this is going to be quite a bit, so I'm actually going to just twist off the top and dump some of that in since we are tripling the recipe. You guys have commented on the channel before to always make sure to kind of cook those spices with your base and the oils and before you add liquid, and so I'm trying to follow that method right now instead of just dumping everything in all at once. Next, we're going to add a little bit of that turmeric. This is going to give some good flavor, but also make kind of the overall color of the dish. And this is what kind of turns it that orangey color. And next, for a little bit of heat, we're using cayenne pepper. We don't like ours super spicy, so I'm only adding a tiny bit of this. If you want it more spicy, you can add more of this. If you want it like not spicy at all, you can completely omit this, but this little bit that I added in helped to give it some just kind of back end heat, but a lot of flavor. So now we're just going to stir all of those spices in so that they catch with the oil, get slightly toasted, and cook up with the rest of the dish. And then we're going to wait for those onions to get soft before adding any liquid. Once that's done, we are going to add our tomato sauce. And while I'm adding this, I use this opportunity to use the acid from the tomatoes to kind of scrape up any brown bits on the bottom of the pan and incorporate those into the dish. And last ingredient is tomato paste. I absolutely love the squeeze tube tomato paste. If I get a jar, I usually end up wasting it and it goes bad before I can use the rest of the can. So squeeze tube is totally what you should use. It has changed my life. Once that's all stirred, I am going to cover this, reduce the heat to low, and let that simmer for quite a while. You want to be really careful that you're getting it at just barely a simmer because if you're using a heavy duty pot or Dutch oven like this, it's really easy for stuff to burn on the bottom. So make sure you drop that too low. I've made recipes before where I didn't find out that there's burnt stuff on the bottom until the very end and it completely ruined the dish. So keep that in mind. But once everything is cooked down, we are going to add what makes this whole dish super delicious and creamy, which is some heavy whipping cream. I always suggest to add a little bit, stir it, and then taste it and determine kind of how you want the flavor to be. If it's too spicy, you definitely want to add more cream. And like I said, we don't like ours very spicy, so I tend to add a lot of cream. Remember, we've tripled this recipe, so I know it looks like a lot of cream, but that is getting spread out between 3 different recipes. And this is kind of the color at the end that we end up with for our own personal taste. You don't want to cook that heavy whipping cream for too long, just enough so that it gets heated, and then you can serve over rice or whatever your base of choice is. I've seen some people put this over potatoes. We almost always put it over some basmati rice, and it is super delicious. If you want a really nice finishing touch, you can chop up some cilantro and use that as your topping. I always personally feel like a dish isn't complete without a fresh element, so I love putting lots of cilantro on top. You can also pair this with some naan bread. It pairs super delicious to dip into that delicious creamy sauce. And I will link our naan bread recipe that we just tried down below. It ended up being a really great pairing to have with this dish. Seriously, super delicious. Dunking naan bread into it is my favorite part. You don't have to do it, but I'm telling you, it's addicting. So this is the finished product. It's so good, you guys. So I could pretty much eat this every week. So I feel like we're going to be doing a lot of batch cooking of this particular recipe. But one great thing about batch cooking is if you are already going to make it, you might as well just double up or triple up on the recipe to make a freezer meal because it almost takes no additional time to just triple a recipe, and then you save so much more time in the future by having that already made, and you're not struggling with the decision of eating out or not. So we're just going to let that completely cool down, and then once it's completely cooled down, which by the way does take quite a bit of time, you might even put it in your fridge on top of some pot holders, which is what we did to get it to cool quicker. And then once it's completely cooled, we are going to label these Ziploc bags, put them in the Ziploc bags, make sure as little air is in there as possible, seal them up, and then lay them flat to freeze. Makes it super easy for storage, and again, a really yummy dinner that we can have by just reheating and cooking up some rice. So I'm going to go pop these in the freezer. I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching. If you guys like these freezer meal cooking videos and you want to see more, drop a comment down below. I think we're going to do like a whole series with it because like I said, I'm obsessed.